You're watching Tech Talk, affiliation with Tech for Techs. We're a community that supports independent trade with the help of vendors and distributors. We're live every Thursday at 8 p.m. London time, and we'll be streaming to Facebook and YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google, TuneIn, and many more. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, and your host, Philip Griffiths.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Tech for Tech Tech Talk. This is episode 13, Retro Night. If you have any thoughts or questions on this topic, please feel free to comment in the comments section. If you're watching from Facebook group, please click the link in the chat, which I'm going to post just in a second, and that will allow your name to be displayed on the actual live stream. Again, click that link to give Facebook permission. And again, that's just for people in the Facebook group. Today we are joined by Ben Ashcroft from Bugs and Bytes Computing in Lincoln, Ian Harden from IPC Solutions in Essex. We've got Peter Whitehouse from ScanStation Computers in Bognor Regis. We've also got Robert Mckendrick from Invaders Computer Centre in, believe it or not, Inverness. We've also got Sharon Richards from Eurosoft, and that's the guys that make PC Check if you're not sure. And we've also got Jason Henrick as well on the show, who will be telling us about the Retro Computer Museum and so forth in a few minutes as well. First of all, if you can hear us, please comment in the comment section. Let us know you can hear us and so forth. Otherwise, well, we could be just talking to a blank screen, all we know. Again, if you do want to get your name to show, make sure you click that link in the chat screen. That way, we'll be able to see your name on the screen. Right, if you want to let us know where you are as well in the world, what company you're viewing and so forth from, so let's just say your name's Bob and you're at Bob's Computers, let us know and we'll give you a shout out. Right, so first off, let's start off with the introductions. So let's start with Ben. Would you like to introduce yourself? Let us know who you are, what you do, where you're from, and any tips and advice or story to tell us this week.
Hi, Phil. Yeah, so I'm Ben Ashcroft. I run Bugs and Bytes Computing in Lincoln. It's been a busy week, very busy at the moment. Bit of a tech tip. So, customer phoned me earlier today. They've got a password on their, I think, the 2015 Apple iMac. I haven't used the machine in a while. It's obviously done an update, and it's set the password by itself. It's not related to any passwords he's had on the system itself. Very useful, but nonetheless, it was there. I thought it was just going to be a complete case of wipe the drive and reinstall it, but thanks to the guys on Tech for Techs, I found out a very useful tip, which is you can boot the Mac using Command and R to go into recovery mode and enter into the terminal and remove the password that way with a few different commands. So saved having to reinstall the whole machine and charge the customer for it. He was quite happy, and I'm quite happy because he's happy.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. Thank you for that, Ben. Next on to Ian. If you want to tell us a bit about yourself, tell us who you are, where you work, and also any tips, news, advice, or stories.
Hi, my name's Ian Harden. I run IPC Solutions in Heybridge in Essex. Tips. I buy an awful lot of tech items from auction, good and bad, and a fair amount of the stuff that you do buy is unfortunately not working. And I recently had a massive order that came in with motherboards, power supply units, etc. And I thought 80% of it was bust. However, when I usually disposed of it, I decided this time to keep the modular cables from the power supply units. And they, in fact, sold separately for more than what the units actually cost originally, which was nice. So my tip would be to keep the modular cables and sell them separately on eBay, because they go anywhere between £10 and £20 a piece, which if you have an EVGA one, for example, Supernova, they have about 15 cables in, which is lovely. And sell all the ones that don't work on eBay. I put all the rest of them on there, and made just as much as I paid at auction back for them. So there are some experts out there that repair them. So yeah, nothing goes to waste, and you get your money back to a degree.
That sounds pretty good. Well, I'm going to say at that rate, you might as well just go and sell your all the parts in your power supply rather than using the power supply. But yeah, that's pretty good. Right, let's just go through some of the comments before we go first. Yes, you did make it tonight, Richard Creedy. Let's have a look. Timothy says he can see and hear us. Richard Overfield is evening all. I can hear and see perfectly on YouTube. Thank you. And who we got here? Richard Creedy. Yes, he can see us. And Cormac as well. Hi, Cormac. If you don't know who Cormac is, he's also known as the Chicken Man. So Mark Dennis is loud and clear. So everyone seems to be able to hear us. And JM Gamer 999. Right. So first question. Let's have a look. Why is a good-looking Irish guy not on the show? Was he too young to talk retro? No, sorry, Cormac. I think it had something to do with him about breaking his webcam because it sort of had that mirror effect and it shattered when you looked into it. Right, okay. Timothy says hello. Who says can't hear you? Okay, good idea to turn your phone off and on again. Let's have a look. We've got Mark here from Rayleigh Computer Shop, Essex. RL Supplies in Watford as well. That's Richard. You've got Paul as well from Neo Computers. As you can see, we've got quite a few people in tonight viewing. I found this to Ian. I've no idea what that means, Timothy, but okay. Broken laptop parts worth more at times. Yeah, I agree, Timothy. And Dave says evening all. So let's go back on to the next person on our list. So Peter, if you want to introduce yourself, tell everyone who you are, what you do, and give us some news or advice or a story.
Thanks, Phil. I'm Peter from ScanStation Computers. We're based just outside Bognor Regis in West Sussex. We do repairs from our retail store, we sell new computers, and we also do managed services to businesses. My tip this week, if we go on the retro theme, is actually a YouTube channel, one of my favorites. It's called RMC The Cave. It used to be called Retro Man Cave, but it's now RMC The Cave. It's really well presented. It's very sort of slow going, well explained. The presentation's fantastic. And if you've got any interest in computing, all different retro computers, Spectrum, Commodore, everything, go and check out RMC The Cave. It's one of my favorite YouTube channels.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. I'll have to check that channel out later, I think. Scorpion Computers says hello, and they're in northeast England. They're called Facebook User. If you want to click that link I put in chat, Mr. Facebook User, then we'll be able to actually see what your name is. Also, we've got Dave saying evening from Ping Zone PCs in Portsmouth. Right, next up, Robert, if you want to introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are, what you do, and if you've got a story or a tip for us tonight.
Evening all, Robert Mckendrick from Inverness Computer Centre. Inverness Computer Centre started in 1986, so we've done all the old stuff, and that's really relevant tonight. Doing all the sort of current stuff that you'd expect us to do, service repairs, sales. My tip is pretty obvious as regards the current market conditions and obtaining stock, and that is basically my experience recently is buy as much stock as you possibly can. Even the odd stuff is selling. If you've got something, it will sell. One of the big disties kind of gave me this tip over the phone 6, 8, 10 weeks ago. Well, to be honest, through lockdown, I've just been buying as much stock as I can, and if you've got it, you'll sell it and keep the till ringing. That's my tip.
That's a pretty good tip there. Thank you very much for that. Let's move on. So next person on our list is going to be Sharon. So Sharon, if you want to introduce us to yourself and tell us a bit about yourself, and obviously give us a tip or a story or news, feel free.
Okay, I'll try not to stay with the retro theme too much. I'm Sharon Richards. I'm from Eurosoft UK Limited, one of the directors, and my forte is making sure that the PC Check diagnostic products get into the hands of all kinds of repair people. PC hardware. I think my tip, which is kind of interesting, is along the line of that. What was just said about buying up all this computer equipment. And we've been finding that too from our customers, the refurbishers, particularly. And I'm hearing that, sorry guys, that you can't hear me too well. Beg your pardon about that, but try and talk a little bit closer. Anyways, the recent news from CompTIA and also from HPE is that there is an increase in field techs, and they're opening back up direct access to IT in-house. So that also means that there's going to be, more people in need of equipment and, of course, our tools, which is great for me. But that's what's going on. And I have a little deeper intro later on if I get that chance at my own start with in the retro area, but we'll wait for that. So thanks very much, guys.
Thank you for that, Sharon. Right, next up we have got, let's have a look, who am I missing? Oh yes, Jason. So Jason's with us today, and if you would like to introduce yourself, Jason, and tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and if you've got any tips or stories of advice, feel free to let us know.
Right, well, thank you, and nice to be with you today. Yeah, I am Jason Herrick. I am part of the Pixel Fix podcast, which deals with all things retro, and also I help out at the Retro Computer Museum in Leicester, so that keeps me quite busy. I am somehow retired, unfortunately not through a good thing, through ill health, unfortunately, but I do help people with computers and modern stuff as well. So one of my little tips that I would like to give is where people have maybe used a home telephone for approving their Microsoft account, Microsoft have now decided this isn't suitable. So they can't contact you back and call you back on your home phone, which they used to do. So get updated and get a mobile number put in there for your security info as soon as you can.
That's a brilliant tip. That is. I must admit, I didn't know that one about the home numbers, so I'll definitely be watching out for that one. What happens if someone hasn't got a mobile phone?
Well, that's a problem that I'm coming up with actually on a few customers. I help really people in our village where we live, and especially the older population have not got mobile phones, and then we're ending up in this loop that Microsoft can't confirm who they are, so you can't get in to alter anything. And because of that, I think the long run, I've recommended someone we leave it a month, because that seems to be how long they take to reset various bits at Microsoft. We try again, and if that's unsuccessful, we're going to unfortunately have to probably start again and create a new email address and new Microsoft account for these people. So not looking too good at the moment.
And that causes lots of problems as well when people have to set it up with all the different accounts and everything like that. Yeah, I know that one too well. Right, okay. So first of all, I'll go through my tips. So first of all, Intel has reconfirmed that its new 11,000 series chips, it's a strange name, will be launched on March the 30th. And what's the bet? There'll be no stock. AMD has also announced, they announced that they were announcing the 6700 XT graphics card. And at that announcement, they announced it will be available to buy from the 18th of March. And I'm now announcing, I bet there'll be no stock. I think the problem is with graphics cards or anything, stock, no chance. So, right, let's have a quick look at some of the comments coming in. So we've got quite a bit coming in at the moment. So let's have a look. So, who was the last one to speak? Here we go. Okay, apparently we've got to ask Pete about Monkey Island or XCOM. He loves talking about it. I'm not a Monkey Island fan myself, but I do love my XCOM, I must admit.
Can do Monkey Island 1 speed run off the top of my head.
Oh dear.
That's impressive.
Next you'll be telling me you do it blindfolded.
No.
I don't know. So let's have a look. We've got Philippe Rogers. Good evening. Hope everyone's well and keeping safe. Yes, we're fine here. Thank you. And I know the answer to this one. Paul is asking, is that cannon fodder?
It is.
Yes, it is. He has got cannon fodder on there. So let's have a look. Richard Overfield. I wasn't aware there was a retro computer museum in Leicester. We'll have to come and take a look when my son's back at uni. So there you go. So yeah, I've had a look at the website. Let's put the website address back up as well for you. So there you go. So if you want to look it up, you can do there. So also we've got... Here we go. Timothy, post-lockdown, dragging the family to the Retro Museum as well. Looks like Retro Museum is going to be really full after lockdown.
Yes, we're looking forward to that, but obviously we're not sure when we can open as yet. So obviously keep looking, and we also have a page on Facebook which people can find out more up-to-date information on us.
Yeah, I bet it's a strange one for you guys, because you're not really a retail store. You're quite more of a museum, I suppose, which is going to be like a public one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if I can just give you a quick... The word museums is actually quite interesting, because obviously we deal with older bits of kit. But people come in quite often and they're expecting a museum. You know, it's like you walk up, you read a bit of information about something behind glass, and that's it. No, all of our bits of computers, hardware, everything is available to touch, to play on. We can put different games on for people. We've got a software library with something like 40,000 titles, a huge library. We've got magazines and articles from people, you know, all the various magazines over time. So lots and lots of different things. So a great day out for people who have got an interest in anything of computers.
I definitely have to make a visit up there after lockdown, that's for sure. I think I'm willing to go anywhere at the moment, to be honest, the amount we're being locked in, but definitely interests me, that one, so I'll have to pop up one of the days. Right, and Richard Creedy said he wasn't aware of that either. That's about the Microsoft. Should have at least let the partners know about it. Yeah, I agree with that, Richard, but then again, when has Microsoft ever been good at telling anyone anything? I'll let you figure that one out yourself. Right, okay, so let's go on to the main show topic. If you haven't figured it out, it's Retro Nights, which basically means we're going to be looking at old stuff. And I don't mean the guests who are on the show, we're talking about their actual computers or talking about their computers. So let's start off going around the table. So let's start off with Robert. So, Robert, if you want to give us some story or information about retro or something you've done in the past which was retro.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll go back to 1986 is when we kicked off, and I've actually got my original business card, so I'll see if you can bring it up to the screen and you can see what we used to sell, and that was Commodores, and C16s, and VIC-20s, and all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff, all cassette-based, and very interesting times, the height of computer piracy. I, of course, was a customer before I had a computer business, so I knew how to copy all the games and I knew all the dodges. So when we actually opened the shop or took over this business that we've obviously brought forward, I kind of knew all the dodges that the young guys would be doing, tape copying and things like that. So it was good being the same age as your customers. So lots of good memories dealing with people like Leisuresoft, Centresoft, going down to the computer show in London as a 16-year-old boy was a seriously big deal. Football Manager was the big game. Things moved on, and this thing called a hard drive eventually became available, and it cost £400, and we couldn't afford to sell them because nobody had that amount of money, which was true story. We eventually got our arm twisted, and this Commodore wholesaler made us take one. And thereafter, the Commodore suppliers like Silica, ZCL, they would annually take us on holiday to some amazing places for selling so much kit. We ended up in Barbados, Monaco, various places. So I was a very fortunate person to be involved in industry back then. And then we moved on to Amstrads, did really well out of Amstrad. And well, that's our story. I've got a wee video to share with you of the launch of Sonic the Hedgehog, or maybe Sonic 2 in 1993. So if you want a wee bit of a laugh, I can take you back to 1993 and we'll show you what happened back then. Phil and I'll get this organised right now. So
it was on a second ago. There we go.
And that's a Scottish Sonic. And this was an open day that we had on launch day, and it was quite an amazing occasion. And you'll see a lot of the products which we had really quite a good shop at the time, and we had this amazing prize draw, which you can see how successful the whole day was. And we ended up giving away bits and pieces, and we had to call the police in for crowd control because there was that many people outside. So yeah, that's me with the ginger hat, and Santa Claus is there. So well, anyway, that's enough from me. Whatever you guys, it was quite an experience back then.
Yeah, that looks pretty good, to be honest with you. Don't you wish that our distributors, hint, Target, CMS, VIP, Spire, everyone else out there, instead of having open days, took us all to Barbados for a week? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Well, that's sorry for interrupting back in. Going to Bradford now is the highlight. And the last few years I've managed to go, met some most amazing people, really nice people, and it's been good. So Bahamas, Barbados, Bradford it is now.
That's pretty good. You might want to pause that video, Robert. We can hear it still playing in the background.
Okay, I'll get shot of that. Okay, no problem.
That's no problem. Right. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the comments in the chat. So let's have a look. A lot of stuff about the retro comment stuff. Zelda Link's awaiting. Here we go. Let's have a look. Who remembers Watford Electronics? My first Saturday job was programming the DFS disk filing system, ROMs, and putting the kits together with the Intel 8271 floppy disk controller for the BBCs.
Yeah.
Wow. I remember of Watford Electronics. Don't remember much about it. So, but yeah, the BBC, believe it or not, or the BBC Micro, I think was probably the first computer I actually used, which was playing Chucky Egg and the original Elite on it and stuff like that, I think, if I remember right, before upgraded to the Amiga 500. Right. Robert, your
That's not me.
Well, I've muted him anyway, and it stopped. So I'll turn him back on in a minute. Right, okay. So let's go on to Peter. Okay, Peter, what have you got for us about retro?
So I suppose what got me into computing, my earliest memories, similar to yourself, as being an 80s child, we had these BBC Micros at primary school. I think it was maybe one per class. So everyone would be huddled round and we'd be playing something like Granny's Garden. Or we'd have the plug-in turtle. It was like a translucent dome that it would hook into Dart and you could program it to move around the floor. So you'd be like forward 50, right 90, and you had pen up and pen down. And there was a pen inside that could draw on the floor. And we even when I left secondary school, they still had BBC Micros in science lessons with temperature probes and things. And then the family computer, we had an Amiga 500. That was what really got me hooked. Stayed with Amigas for many, many years after that. Had an Amiga 1200. It fitted in a PC tower, Power PC, processor in there, VGA graphics card, high resolution, had all that stuff. Really regret getting rid of it now, looking how much they cost online now. But those are some of my earliest memories, I suppose, being an 80s child.
Yeah, some good memories there by the sound of it. Granny's Garden. Wow. Yeah, I remember some of these school computers. I can't even remember half of the names of the stuff, what they used to have on them, but there was some very interesting stuff for its day, that's for sure. I remember History used to have one where you used to build castles or something. I can't remember what that was called, but yes, definitely some interesting stuff there. Let's move over to Ian then. Ian, if you want to tell us a bit about what... about basically what you've been involved retro-wise, what you've done in the past, what you currently do, and stuff like that.
Yeah, certainly. Very much like Pete, really. My first experience of a computer was in primary school. We had the BBC Micro, and we had one per classroom, but we were never allowed to play on it for games purposes. We had to use it for designing moving pictures, which you put rows and rows and rows and rows of text, and then the balloon would go across the screen, and then you'd all go, "Yay, done it!" Programmed the computer. For me, really, it was when I was about 14, and we got a Commodore 64 for Christmas. I'd never really been into sort of gaming much, really, before that time, and then I was just hooked. Absolutely. Some of my fondest memories playing C64 with my mates. Bubble, I think, was the biggest game I played, and still one of my favourites to this day. And I've owned it on all formats that I've had since the C64. I was never lucky enough to get an Amiga. I always wanted to get the Amiga to play Speedball, really. Although I did get Speedball 2 on the C64 and hammered that to death. But yeah, I've had most consoles. I was thinking about the consoles that I've had. And I think after the C64, around about 18 years old, I had a Genesis or Mega Drive and a Super NES. Me and my brother had one of those each, so it was always there's certain games on one console that you played to death, and like it was always Street Fighter 2 or Zelda on the N6 on the SNES. They were some of the really good games, and Secret of Mana series, and I love those games on there. And then it was just going through the. I love Sega, so I had the Saturn. I had the Saturn, and then I had the ones after that. I can't remember what they are now. But I've had them all mainly, and all the Nintendos. I flit around from console to console, but I'm kind of like a PlayStation man now. But I am going to get my emulator on my RetroPie out and running, so I can play all the C64 games again and all the other classics from PlayStation era and the Amiga, because there were some classic games on the Amiga. Cannon Fodder for one, and that was great. And Speedball. I feel the difference when I play retro games, be it on RetroPie or some of the websites that you can play them on. I just think the gameplay's really good and probably better than some of the modern stuff, because it was just focused on gameplay. The graphics were kind of a secondary thing with the old retro consoles and stuff. So they were very playable, and they were good for playing with your mates as well. So yeah, they're some of my memories.
Yeah, I'm going to say Speedball, that brings back some memories. I must admit it was one of the games I did like. I remember it was sort of the retro days. It's like a big improvement in a game was like, was it Sensible Soccer, where they went from everyone having brown hair, and then suddenly they brought out the new version and they had different colour hair, and that was the massive improvement in the game. I think it was Sensible Soccer, if I remember right, but I might be wrong. It's been that long ago. Ben will probably tell me otherwise, but right, let's move on to Sharon. So Sharon, if you want to tell us a bit about your retro stuff, or what you used to do, or even if you still do it now.
Yeah, I'm on it. So can you hear me now? Is that a little bit better?
Yes, that's a lot better.
Thank goodness. Okay. So talking to Ben Ashcroft earlier today, he kind of nudged me as to, where I was from and what I was doing, and it came up that I used to work for Ward Software, and they were the BIOS people back in the day. So I got my feet wet and learned a bit more about computers from about 1984, 85. And I just had to bring this along to prove I was an honorary Award Software crew member. I still have it from the day. And I think what I want to kind of add, which I think is really cool, is that Eurosoft back in 1986 was called Systems Constructors, and they were the representative for the Award Software BIOS. And interestingly, the Systems Constructors group originated the first postcard with the PC Check diagnostics on it. So, I mean, that goes way back. And I can remember, hauling around trying to find parts to build this postcard for the Ward Software development team all over the Silicon Valley, collecting what I could here and there, Aladdin's caves, wherever. And that goes back quite a ways. So it isn't just the games, because I can attest to, I think I was probably playing Pong was about all I ever got involved with games. So I don't have that badge of honor, but certainly, some of the originating basic input outputs, definitely.
Yeah, more of the technical side there. I can hear someone typing really hard on the keyboard. Hang on 1 second. Let me just see who that is. There we go. So, yeah, what year was it you started in the tech industry, do you say, Sharon?
The year? Oh, it was like 1984, 85? 85,
right, so
specifically.
Definitely predates me then by miles, that one does. So I think, when was it I started? So first job I had in the tech industry would actually be late 90s. So unfortunately, I grew up with the Windows side of things, 95, 98. Sorry to say it, Windows ME and so forth. So, but yeah, I do remember the retro games and stuff like that. Even, okay, I suppose it's slightly retro now. The PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. I actually worked for Sony for about 2 years in their development room. So they basically on the machines where they created the games on, which was sort of like a cross between a PlayStation and a PC and stuff like that. But what was everyone else's dates when they first started playing with computers, should we say, or working on computers? Does anyone predate Sharon?
Come on.
Yeah, I playing
Super grand.
1982 for me.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
So, I borrowed a ZX81 from school over a weekend and filled up its 1K of memory, and that got returned. And then that Christmas, we got the ZX Spectrum as a family Christmas present that I think I took control of. So, yeah.
Wow. 1K of memory.
I can tell you a quick story about my first Spectrum. It was my birthday. I can't honestly say how old I was, perhaps 12 or 13. And in September, I was handed my Spectrum computer, and my parents are looking at me and smiling. And I said, "Where's the tape recorder?" So anyway, I got the computer for breakfast, and by 6 o'clock that night, they'd been down to Comets, and we had to get a 5-pin DIN cable to two 3.5s made up, and then I could play my games, and I was quite happy. But that was serious oversight. No cassette recorder.
Right, wow. Bringing up some memories there. So let's have a look in the chat. What year did everyone in the chat start in the tech industry or get their first computer or whatever? I think the first person to answer was Richard Creedy, 1983. So I think Jason still beats you there by a year. Anyone else? Let's have a look at some of the other comments coming in. Wow, there's a lot of comments here. VIC-20s. Anyone here remember a VIC-20?
Straight to C64. That's where we went.
Yeah.
That's 86, I think. Yeah, about 86 was my C64. And about 81, 82 was when I first played the BBC Micro in school.
I remember the VIC-20s vaguely. I remember my granddad having a Commodore Plus 4, which was Oh, it was absolutely horrendous. And I'm a Commodore fan, as if you can't tell.
Well, there was a C16, and the expensive one was the +4, if I remember. Yeah, one had a small memory, one had a larger one.
I think the +4 was a really cheap one that no one wanted, which is probably why my granddad bought one, because he didn't have any.
I don't know. Right, so we've got Facebook user. I don't know who you are, Facebook user, but 1981 was the date you started. Again, if you're on the Facebook group, you need to click that link, what says chat.restream.io/Facebook to give Facebook permission to put your name in the chat. But anyway, Facebook user, you're winning at the moment, whoever you may be. So quite a few people commenting on C64s as well, Amigas, ZX81s, Dreamcast. God, I even forgot the Dreamcast existed. Also,
Raspberry Pi. Brilliant.
What was that, Ian? Sorry.
So I asked, that's the one I was trying to remember. The Dreamcast, probably one of the best and underrated consoles ever released, in my opinion.
Sometimes the best quality things are sometimes the things what don't make it, though, aren't they? It's like 8-track and all that sort of thing. It was the better format, but it probably just wasn't cheap enough for people or in the right market. But yeah. Right, so I think Ben is next. So Ben, tell us a bit about your past or what you do now, or well, I can see you've got plenty of things in front of you. What you're going to tell us about, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, I've been working in IT on and off for the last sort of 19, 20 years. I know I don't look that old, but I am really. It's the camera; it makes me look younger. Yeah, I remember the BBC Micro when I was in primary school. They used to get wheeled in on this massive, great big trolley, and the trolley was probably about 2-3 times the weight of the bloody system. You know, it was a huge, big thing. Granny's Garden, for sure, remember that. There was another game you had to dig through the caves, and I can't remember what that was. I think got our first computer when I was about 2 or 3 years old, which would have been 1984, 1985. We started off with ZX81, moved on from that to the Commodore 64. That's the one I most remember. That sort of started my affinity with Commodore machines. Had an Amiga 1200 when I was sort of 12, 13 years old. Loved that to bits. We sold it, and I kind of always liked that machine, which I hadn't sold it. Got back into them a few years later, and the prices started rising a bit, so kind of glad I got into it when I did, sort of thing. Lovely machines. It's a real pastime of mine now, buying these old machines, restoring them up, selling them on, sometimes keeping them on collection and tinkering around with them. Just, really, really nice little sort of nest egg investment, and enjoy the software, that sort of thing, you know.
That sounds pretty good. Right, let's go on then to Jason. So Jason's one of our newcomers tonight. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, when you started, what you do now with them, and so forth? And then no doubt Ben's going to show off his stunt racer, and Jason will probably show off his cannon fodder in a few minutes. And no, that is no weird sayings or meanings. It's an actual game. Right, okay. So Jason, if you want to just run us through where you started then.
Yeah, mine actually goes back even into probably 1978 when we visited a friend and I first played. Do you remember the old, very wooden-looking machines where they had it was like 2 bats going up and down, so it was a Pong, but you could actually swap it and play tennis, which was a very slight variation, or squash. So there were about 8 different games of moving bits about. So that was my first introduction, and I just absolutely loved this idea that you could control something that was coming out of the television, you know, because up until then, television just threw things at you and you had no control over it. So quite mind-blowing when I saw that. So yeah, then moving forward, got the ZX Spectrum, which I had and loved for many, many years. Moved on then to an Atari 800 XL, which is great. Had the disk drive and the tape deck for that, and learnt all sorts of things for that. Then eventually moved on to the Amiga 500, then the 1200, and expanded all sorts of bits on that with extra accelerators and SCSI and various things. And then I got tempted over with Doom and various other things, and I started on my own track of building PCs. and to fund my PC building habit and want all that new software and hardware and everything, you had to swap it every 3 months at that time. I ended up building my old ones and selling them on to work colleagues at cost. So that basically kept me going all the way through for a while, and that's ended up with extra computer bits. So learnt networking and very much taught myself and learnt all the way through from the beginning with up-to-date stuff. But I've kept all of my old retro computers, and since then I've added, or when I got married, my wife had an Acorn Electron, which I've picked up a Commodore 64, one of the original Xboxes, which is running behind me just over here. I also had a CD32, which is up here, and that's got a few additions to it. And then I've added an Amiga 600, a CD-TV, a Commodore CD-TV, I should say. I've got a Dreamcast, a Jaguar, and basically, I just love all the retro stuff and just being able to play all the different games that I missed out on because I didn't have consoles when I had the Amiga. So that's basically my story. And where I am now, having found the computer museum, the Retro Computer Museum, I just love that. So, and I'm sure anyone else who loves retro or the idea of it will love the place too. So, yeah.
It sounds pretty good. I'm pretty sure we ought to do some sort of live show at the Retro Museum one of the days when we can get out of lockdown and do something along there. That would be pretty cool. Right, yeah, I'm going to say a lot of the games, the old games, a lot of people will say this, but I think a lot of them, because the graphics weren't as good, they put a lot more thought into the story or the mechanics of the games and stuff like that. And it's very rare I see a game these days which actually beats them in other than the graphics. And some of the games are just look at Cyberpunk. It looks brilliant, but it plays not very well, let's put it that way. So, but then again, you've had issues with that all through history. Some games are better than others. I think one of the worst games ever was at E.T., if I remember right, or something like that. If I heard them made loads and loads of copies of it, and they couldn't sell it or something, and they dumped them all and so forth. So, let's have a look.
Quickly, the funny story on the E.T. one. They actually produced, I think it was twice as many cartridges as there were consoles about.
Right, that's a bad start.
Yeah, so that's part of the reason they actually had so many left over.
Wow, I'm going to say that whoever was in charge of the manufacturing or counting, hopefully they got the sack. Right, let's have a look. Before we go on to the demonstrations of what you've got on your machines and stuff, how can these machines help, let's say, independent shops through either repair or selling them or sourcing them? Who wants to go first here? I'm guessing I'm going for Ben because I can see him nodding his head. So, Ben, tell us how, obviously, these retro things can help us today.
There's a good market. The values on retro stuff, particularly the Commodore market, is booming at the moment. I mean, the value is just going up and up and up. You know, it's a good little market to get into. You're never going to make a full-time business out of it, but as an extra sort of to your business, if you do sort of refurbishment work, that sort of thing, it's quite good, really. You know, spares are fairly plentiful for them. It's back in the days when, like your motherboards and expansion cards, well, certainly the motherboards could be repaired because the traces are a lot larger, that sort of thing. The parts are very available. You just have to be very careful what you buy because a lot of people, they take their old computers out of the loft, they chuck them on eBay, and they haven't taken care of them. The biggest killer on these old machines, they all had the old style nickel hydride batteries, which just leak and basically pour acid all over the boards on them, and it kills the machines off, and you get folk putting them on eBay and cash in, and you end up getting something totally different to what you expect when it arrives, sort of thing. But I mean, you can make money out of retro if you want to, out of restoring retro machines and selling them. I mean, some of the machines now have got sort of really good values on them. I mean, you got like the Amiga 1000, this one here. That's pretty standard, other than this 4 megabyte RAM expansion on the side. You'll still get sort of between, I don't know, Jason, you might correct me if I'm wrong here, sort of £800 maybe, £900, £1,000 at a push for one of these.
Yes, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you've got like the Amiga 1500s. Stock spec, you'll sort of spend £400 or £500 maybe. Put some upgrades, like this one's got an accelerator upgrade with 28 megahertz, no less. Really on fire that, you know. With all upgrades, again, you're probably looking about maybe £1,000 for it, sort of thing. I keep some for myself and I refurbish some myself. I'm not all about just making the money. I quite like them for the old games and stuff like that. I always wanted one of these big box Amigas when I was younger, but couldn't afford one. Not many people could because they're aimed at the professional market at the time. Very expensive. But these are the ones to go for, the big box machines rather than the wedge machines. So
Okay, that sounds pretty good. Have you got anything you'd like to add in there, Jason?
Yeah, I think there's just so many mixes of different computers, and it depends very much what you grew up with, doesn't it? So I like what Ben says about the big box. I think that's something, you know, we all aspired to having one of the big box Amigas, you know, the 1500, the 2000, 3000s. They were all fantastic machines, but what we grew up with were the 500s and the 1200s. So I think a lot of people will still want to grab those when they are looking. But as he said, the problem is the prices on those are absolutely incredible. You know, you can be spending £300-400 quite easily on a 1200 if it's good condition. And especially if you've got boxed ones, which, you know, I've ended up with mine, thankfully, which I kept from that time. But yeah, trying to buy them and look after them and just knowing what you've got. So in essence, with what he said about the batteries, in general, if you bought the original Amiga 500, you'd be very safe with that because it didn't have a battery in it. If you bought the 500 plus, that did. And then ongoing from there. So depends what age of computers you wanted to get into. And of course, then for, you know, that's more the purist. And I think any of us will agree, if you can actually sit down and play on the original hardware, that is absolutely the best way to play. And it's got all the nostalgia and it's ticks all the boxes for you. But just to be able to play the games, nowadays you can get something like a Raspberry Pi and run an emulator on it. I'm not saying that's the best way, but it's still... if you've got a bit of an itch that you want to play those old games, then that's also a way around it.
Okay.
For sure, it's different horses for courses. You got, like, I mean, I'm very period correct with upgrades I do. I got like an accelerator card for this. I think it was the first accelerator released for these machines in '92. I was very lucky I didn't pay the full price. I came across it because I happened to find a pair of these machines going. Someone basically wanted rid of the machines, just having a clear out. Bought the two machines, basically sold one machine to Jason, took all accelerating expansions out of the second machine, put it into my own one, and that one's sitting there as a spares repairs machine waiting to be refurbished fully. So it's if you're going to get into the market and you want to do the upgrades, try and buy a whole system with the upgrades already done, because otherwise it gets really, really expensive. I mean, the old hardware, you've got stuff like the old hard drive expansion cards. Yeah, you never used to be able to plug them straight to the motherboard. Sort of 80, 90, £100 for a RAM and hard drive expansion card for something like this. Accelerator cards, you can be sort of £300-400 upwards for a decent accelerator card for big box Amiga or Amiga 1200. Yeah, it can get expensive quite quickly. I think the other thing to note as well, if you're getting into the sort of refurbishment market on these machines, as well as the batteries that like to leak, you've got the capacitors like to leak as well. One of my other Amigas, it's a bit poorly at the moment. I've got my old CD32 Amiga with the rather rare SX1 expansion pack on it. The caps have started to leak on that, unfortunately, so I need to get that sent away to get recapped because it's not in full working order at the moment. It does work, but the joystick has a bit of a mind of its own, which is down to the caps, unfortunately.
Can I ask you a question, Ben?
Yeah, sure.
If I said a Vic chip, what does that mean to you?
We're going a little bit past my working life on retro now. Probably one of the chips inside the Vic, I would imagine, I guess. Because
I've just had a wee flashback. I've got about 20 drawers full of Commodore spares. So no advertising, but at all.
I think you might have a cat after the show tonight, Robert.
Yeah, I forgot about that lot.
If anyone's interested, just to let you know, if anyone's interested in Jason's podcast, the information is on the screen in front of you. So Pixel Fix, you've got the address there. Make sure you go subscribe and have a listen to his shows. Obviously, he's going to be talking about, I'm guessing, retro stuff on, is it a weekly basis, Jason?
Yes, it is. Yeah, and if you don't want to find us on that website, you can also find Pixel Fix on iTunes or Spotify. So we tend to do a show and release it usually every Monday, but of course sometimes life gets in the way, so there can occasionally be a slight delay in those coming out.
Sounds pretty good. Right, let's move on to where would people buy these things from? Okay, I'm guessing we're not going to be able to buy them from Terra Computers or CMS or Target or anywhere like that. Then again, I've seen some of the places old stock, but I don't think they go back that retro. So where would we go, guys? So anyone feel free to chip in.
Yeah, I think certainly, just jumping in quickly on the Amiga side of it, you've got a lot of the Amiga forums, that are out there, Amibe and things like that. There's a guy out there who makes an upgrade for the CD32 called the Terrible Fire. I've added one to mine, and it gave it 64 mega memory, it gave it a compact flash card, it gave the accelerator as well in there, so it's got an 030 accelerator. Really good, and they're still running at quite reasonable prices, £200 to £300 if that's classed as reasonable. Whereas if you try and buy an original one, they can be even more money than that, so, and less features. So sometimes these bits are very good to add on, and so you've got the specialist sites, and then you've got a lot of resellers and places. This is basically a tape drive for my Atari 800. Which is then a touchscreen when it's plugged in, and you can select, and it runs with a micro SD card in the end. So all your games on that. And again, that's something actually we now sell at the Retro Computer Museum to help get people with their hands on things. So, if we at the Retro Computer Museum find something useful, we'll often take stock of some of them and try and sell those on as well. So occasionally we will have stuff, but you've got other people like, I've just seen something mentioned in our conversation, actually, the Checkmate cases, and that's somebody who's actually making new Amiga cases, which can then fit various things like a Raspberry Pi in there, or even a PC, but you can have it then in an Amiga-inspired case. So, lots of different things. And would you believe there is actually a new magazine that started coming out just a few months ago, based around the Amiga in print? And that one is the Amiga Addict magazine. So that one, I think they're on issue 3 now, but that's coming out. And again, other people, if you want to follow, especially on Kickstarter, if you look for the retro stuff there are so many people doing books and magazines on the Amigas, on Spectrums, on various things. And of course, we've had the Spectrum Next, which went on Kickstarter and is now sold out for a second run and going strong.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. Have you got anything you want to add into that, Ben, or anyone else?
Yeah, I think in terms of the purchasing, like what Jason said, you can go onto the forums and buy through the forums. You pay a bit extra, but you more than likely get a better graded machine that's either had the recaps done, had the batteries taken out. So you'll get a better machine, you'll pay a bit more, but you'll save yourself a lot of hassle. I've seen the Terrible Fire card, the accelerator that Jason uses, and I think it's great, but I'm also each their own. I'm very period correct, as I say. I've got the original 540 meg hard drive in my system, albeit it's a bit dicky at the moment. So, but yeah, just be careful what you buy in from where would be the best advice. There's a lot of good stuff still out there on eBay, but there's a lot of crap out there on eBay as well that people have either tried to repair and done a boy's job of it, or they haven't tried to repair it, just pulled it out of the loft after 20 years.
I did find in 2019, actually, there was, especially in Essex, and where I was going around the Essex district shopping and stuff, there was an awful lot of retro-specific stores that sprung up. A lot of them were really, really expensive, but some of them had some pretty good stuff in. whether the consoles were any good or not. Some of them had the yellowing that you got in the classic C64s, etc., and stuck in the loft. But I noticed a lot of those were springing up when retro seemed to have its renaissance for the sales front, I'd say between 2017 and 2019. But those have since gone, not due to COVID. They just kind of come along and just disappeared again. But some of them had some pretty good stuff. But I think the prices of what they were charging for some of the stuff was really overpriced. If you compare it to like AmiBay and eBay and Amazon,
yeah.
Sometimes you get stuff on Amazon and they were just too expensive for people to want to buy them, unless it was a spur of the moment thing. Like you go into some of the shops, and it was only my missus that kind of stopped me from doing it, where I was like, I'm going to have that 64, I'll have that Amiga, I'll have that other old PlayStation console. And I had the money, so I thought, I'm just going to buy it. And then it was like, no, where are you going to put it all? But, so it's, a lot of it is sort of on the cuff purchases I find when I go out to shops. But now I want to get a C64, and I've got the space to have it, even in my office. And I have to hunt a good one out. But like you say, it's a lottery, isn't it, Ben? Especially on eBay.
I think if you're going to get into the retro market and refurbishing and buying them, or just buying one for yourself, I think the Commodore market's a great market to be in, because it's very, very well supported. Whilst you got markets like, dare say, Atari. I know that's a swear word for Commodore users. The Amiga's just really, really well supported. You buy chips and stuff for repairing or replacing chips, like processors and stuff. You can buy all the sockets if you need to resolder new sockets because of battery damage. People are still making new games for them now. The upgrades are still being produced brand new. It's the markets, the market values are just going up and up and up. I think a couple of years ago you would have paid maybe 130 quid for an Amiga 1200. Now you're up to sort of 300-400 quid for a decent one. And as I say, the big box Amigas, they're just jumping up, shooting right up in value. So
I think actually going back to where we could buy them, I think if you think about it, we're quite in a perfect position. A lot of the guys on the Tech for Techs group have got shops, and like people like me and Ben and others work from home in our office. But I think it would be a really good thing to get into, to sell, because you don't have to specifically focus on selling retro gear. You can just have it as an offshoot, especially if you've got an online shop, website where you sell your laptops and your computers, and you can just have a retro bit and even have it as almost like a blog post on the right side of the screen. And people go, oh, I remember that. And sometimes the nostalgia will allow them to press the buy button.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good thing to do, actually.
They're great.
They're related. So
I mean, they're great. It's a great idea. The one sort of caveat I would say, if you're going to buy a retro machine, is particularly the big box machines, more so than the small ones, try and go and pick it up locally. Don't rely on postage, because these machines were never built the best build quality when they were new. You look at stuff like the panel gaps in the floppy drive are far larger than you'd find on any normal PC or computer, because they were just chopped rather than properly done. I've taken this machine over to Jason, and Jason just lives sort of 5-6 miles away from me. I've taken it over there, and I've taken it back home again, and I've had to reseat half the expansion cards because the hard drive sort of stops spinning, or the RAM comes loose and it won't boot up properly because it's got a green screen or something like that, So they're nice, don't get me wrong, but they're a bit quirky. And I think if you're going to get into the proper machine rather than going down the emulation method, you've got to be prepared for the fact stuff will go wrong and stuff doing. But you get your value back if you ever sell a machine, or if you want to sell them on, you get a decent return.
I'll absolutely second that as well, because I've had similar sort of problems on certainly the bigger machines I've had. Whereas the consoles you can almost just pick up and take away with you. The big box ones need to pretty much stay where they are, not be moved. And even just moving it from the side to try and do a repair to then put it back, you can often disturb something, which doesn't do a great advert for these machines. But yeah, they are getting old, and they do need a little bit of TLC, and you've just got to be prepared to give it. Yeah,
for sure. That's the thing to remember. They are, what we're looking at, we're looking about 30 odd years old for this, and closer to sort of 33, 34 years old, still running pretty well, all things considered, but not without their quirks.
Yeah, there's probably viewers in this channel who are actually younger than these devices you're showing off at the moment. Unfortunately, I think Sharon has a question for Ben. If you want to go ahead, Sharon, and ask.
Yeah, actually, I was wondering what these retro PC enthusiasts, of PC broadly speaking, are testing the hardware with.
Well, Sharon, I was waiting for Eurosoft to come out with a retro version of PC Check.
Well, I probably shouldn't say. I'm sure I'd get killed for this, but our lead engineer, who actually developed the majority of PC Check Self Boot, the original, and the PC Check UEFI, he's an Amiga enthusiast in a really big way. So that goes back. He loves them, and but we actually. I don't want to put promises on this, but I think we still have some of the 286 and XT diagnostics, and I wouldn't want to. Maybe I could sell them for a fortune the way you guys are talking, but they might still be available. I mean, I wouldn't recommend the postcards of the day, but that's. Matter of fact, I don't even think I have those anymore. I think I got those sold out a long time ago. But it's possible that we could bring up some of that old PC Check and just give it a run, see what it does. I'd love to try it out with you guys.
For sure,
Yeah.
It'd be quite cool.
Okay.
Getting back to your question about how to test old hardware, though, it's relatively simple. There's not an awful lot to go wrong with these, despite the fact of the age of them. But generally speaking, you'll usually get a different color screen. Like instead of a normal screen like this, you'll get sort of green screen and boot up might tell you the RAM's bad, and you'll reseat the RAM or you'll take the RAM expansions out, that sort of thing. You might get a grey screen will tell you something else, or a black screen will tell you something else altogether. And if it's one that's not working, the first thing, like I say, you sort of look towards is the battery, make sure the battery's not leaked. They make such a mess of. I basically have spent the last 18 months on and off with a bit with Jason, a bit with our mutual friend Tony, who volunteers at the Retro Museum. He's basically spent a lot of time doing trace repairs on the Amiga 4000 to try and bring it back to life. And we've kind of got there. I don't do the trace repair stuff. I don't do the board level stuff, and I would be very wary of trying to attempt it at first on these old machines because they can be quirky at the best of times. But yeah, generally quite easy to sort of work your way through and test and whatnot. And as I say, stuff like the chips, you can get them for a couple of quid. So most of the chips you'll get sort of 5-10 quid max. There's places like Amiga Kit. They've got tons of chips. You can pick them up through eBay. Just watch out for your Chinese fake chips, that sort of thing. But yeah, there's a really good following. Generally, if you need parts, you can get them. If you need to get replacement boards, that's when it starts to get really, really expensive, because even spares repair systems, you can sort of spend a few hundred quid on a spares repair system. I think I bought my Amiga 4000 18 months ago, and I paid 650 quid for that as a non-runner. And I actually had to go and pick it up myself from London. I didn't risk having it posted. I'm in Lincoln, so it was 150 mile trip. Sorry, it's not horrendous. It was an evening's work.
No, that's pretty good there. I'm going to say we've got a comment coming from Donald saying there's a reason why they sent the rover to Mars powered by old computer tech. It's probably more to do with that they can't get hold of the parts, let alone the reliability for the new stuff. But yeah, I must admit, I'm going to say some of the older stuff, there's a lot less to go wrong. It's like an old car; it'll go forever. A new one, you can have a little sensor go on it and it'll stop the whole car driving. So I can see Robert sticking his thumbs down there.
No way! I so strongly disagree with that. I had the biggest garage to take 4 or 5 cars at home full of faulty kit, and if all that kit wasn't faulty, I would have Ferraris today. But you basically had to replace it, and I've never seen so much faulty kit back in the old days. I had shed loads. That's why I don't take an interest in it now, because I'm cringing with the unreliability problems of the old stuff.
The difference is these won't rust if you leave them in the room like the cars will.
Yeah.
I don't think you've seen some of my customers' houses.
Really.
Is there? Can I just ask, Jason? You'll probably know this. Is there any distributors of retro gaming stuff and games still out there? Is there a specialist store that deals with really good stuff?
I was going to say, whether it's a specialist store, itch.io seems to have quite a lot of people putting up various retro games and things, and we've got a lot of creators who started games back in the past are starting to bring out games. If you start searching for new retro games, there are so many games coming out. It is absolutely crazy. There's games for the Spectrum. That's very popular, as is the Amiga, the C64. There are games for the BBC, for, I believe I saw some for the Herrick, even for the NES. So, they are coming out, and it is incredible to find that you're getting new games come out, even recently. Actually, if I just have a look under here, there's a handful of different games for Spectrum Next that's coming out as well. So we've got different bits there that, all of those brand new and people have updated. So absolutely incredible what you can find. Sorry, just checking if there's any more under there. But and I've had new games for the Spectrum, certainly through Kickstarter, because that's where a lot of people seem to start to their ideas and see if it's popular. And so we've had games from that. Another thing, I don't know if people have heard about, there's a Retrocade handheld gaming system. And basically it uses little cartridges with a number of games that are styled around a certain theme. And you buy those for £15 a time. So you can get new games, and they keep releasing far more of these cartridges. So that's yet another way of grabbing more retro whilst you're on the go. So, a great thing again. So there's so many ways that people are now making money out of all this retro gear and selling stuff. You just have to be either looking for the items. You won't tend to stumble across it in the way of wandering into W.H. Smith's, for instance, that kind of thing. That doesn't happen as we used to. So you've got to actually look on the websites and just try and search for retro. If you search for retro news, you will find so many games listed. So it's well worth a look.
Cheers.
Right, before we go on, Sharon has got to get going in a few seconds. She's got another call to do, I think, stateside, I think you said. So she's probably going to be chasing down those old versions of Eurosoft's PC tech somewhere along the line.
You bet.
Just to let you guys know, if you are a Tech for Techs member as well, Eurosoft's actually updated their discount code in our Tech for Techs discount area. So if you are a Tech for Techs member, just go onto the website, look on the announcements, and you'll find the discount link, and you'll be able to find discounts for Eurosoft, as well as a few other different places like Synchro and a few others as well, Cloud Dolphin and so forth. Okay, so have you got anything you'd like to add, Sharon, before you disappear?
Nope, I think that's it. I've really got a nice lesson here tonight, and I'm going to have to look at pulling out those old computers from in the garage at the office, and like that old IBM, and I'll let you all know about that. Thank you very much.
That's no problem. Thanks for joining us, Sharon.
See you later.
You take care.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
I think it's also. I was going to say, I think it's also important to. As well as all the desktops and the consoles, we've got the handheld stuff as well, which is always worth a bit of mention. I think it was Sega, wasn't it? It had the Game Gear, and then we got obviously the old the
Game Boy,
the old Game Boy with the Tetris on it,
and the one before those, and you had the foldy ones, Game and Watch.
Yeah,
were they Game and
Game
Watch?
and Watch. Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Donkey Kong Jr. and things like that.
Yeah, Donkey Kong.
Yeah, they were good. £20 they cost.
I never got into the handholds, to be honest with you. It was never something I got into. I always like going back home, playing on the Amiga or whatever. It was either that or nothing. Always playing something like Syndicate or something along that lines. Peter, do you have anything to do recently with any retro stuff, or is it all in the past now?
No, I mean, a couple of years ago, we supported a couple that run a local charity called Pixels Against Cancer. and they had a local event, and we supported them with some prizes from some of the vendors. So shout out to Gigabyte and Cooler Master for providing those. And it was a really great day. It was extremely busy. There was they raised a lot of money for charity. We got to sort of get hands on with a lot of the older stuff. Probably like some of the stuff Jason's got over at the Retro Computer Museum. And it's just really enjoyable. I think it's really important that everything we have today is built on the foundations of what came before, and a lot of the fundamentals are the same. So understanding the older stuff really helps with even the modern computing. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And sometimes studying the old stuff, as you say, can prepare you for the new stuff. And it's the same with, well, lessons in history and stuff as well. Learn from the past is the sort of the best way of putting it. Right, Ben and Jason, do you have something to show us on these computers you've got in your backgrounds, or are they just there for display?
Well, let Ben go first. I'm sure he will be very keen to show off some of the games he's got there.
Oh, lovely. Yeah,
I believe.
A couple of games here, actually. I can show you one or another. I can probably show you both if you want, but yeah, the old Amiga 1000 here, set up with one of the real old classics, Stunt Car Racer. It was basically you had this old stunt car, drag it around the track as fast as you could, don't fall off and smash the chassis. And it was a cracking bit of kit in the day. I apologise, the screen quality's not the best. You might be getting a bit of flickering because the refresh rate's quite poor on these older screens. But
that's something I don't miss, is watching TV reports and news reports when they used to point the cameras at the old screens and they'd all flicker everywhere.
But yeah, we had the old stunt car racer, and you basically had to try and drag your car around the track as fast as you could. And as fast as you could while running at 7 megahertz, of course, which wasn't very good. Well, it was good in the day, but it's a bit jerky in a 7 megahertz system.
How many frames per second are we doing? Is this going to compare to like the new games what are doing 300 frames per second, or are we talking more like single digits here?
No, it's quite a good sort of resolution. And quite a decent frame rate for what it was, but I have to say, if you run it on the Amiga 1500, it'd be so much faster because that's got a 28 megahertz accelerator in it. But
here, guys, if we don't get any video cards soon, that's the games that we'll be playing.
Yeah, exactly.
But there you have it. That's Stunt Car Racer, and basically don't follow the track; you'll smash your car up like so.
I remember that. Was that also on the 64 as well?
That was in the 64. It wasn't as good graphics, but it was on the 64. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it now.
So yeah,
that brings back memory playing that game for hours and hours and hours.
And then if you go to like the Amiga 1500, that's how it sort of works. You got the everyone remembers old Space Invaders and Asteroids, so I was going to try and get this into the port. This is the accelerated one. This is a nice quick machine. And you got the Space Invaders. It's a Space Invaders clone. You get all your different power-ups and that.
Looks like Galaxy.
What stick are you using there?
That's the Deluxe Glaga, it's called. But this was it, back in the days of proper retro.
That's it.
So
how many colours on the screen are we displaying there? Was it about 16 or something? 8?
I think it's, Jason, you'll probably know this one. Is it 256 colours out of, or is it 32?
I was going to say it depends on what palette they wanted to use. So I think it was up to 256, but generally it was 1632 palette. I think generally used. So
yeah, that was it. Because you had the different chipsets. You had this one runs on the original chipset or the Hans chipset, and then you had the 1200 and the 4000 on the 88 chipset, which was I think that was more. I can't remember how many that was now, but that was out a palette of 16.7 million colours.
Yes, that's it. But the thing is, the games, like we said before, they had to be made to be playable because they didn't have a huge amount of space. Because when you look at the size of disc that they had to fit on, it was 880k.
That
was it. And so to even go to 2 discs, it was obviously extra expense for the extra discs. So people tried to create the game and fit it on as few discs as possible. So good code and good gameplay, that was what it was all about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I say, this machine's got a 540 meg hard drive in it, which sounds absolutely titchy compared to nowadays, and it absolutely is. But you can sort of fill that. It takes you ages and ages, thousands, put absolutely tons of games onto them, you know. It's,
my first hard drive was actually 20 meg.
yes.
Tiny, yeah.
How times have changed. Now we're looking at what I think 18 terabyte, 20 terabyte now you can get. So
yes, that's it. The latest news I saw the other day. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, it always makes me laugh when you sort of look at the RAM expansions and stuff like that. This card in the front here is a 256 kilobyte RAM expansion. And you look at your 8 gigabyte laptop sticker RAMs about that size, and this whole panel here was 256 kilobytes.
Nice.
So it's
the boost it gave.
It's doubled the memory up to 512, but let's say put an extra 4 meg. This little card on the side's an extra 4 megabytes. So.
And that wouldn't have been cheap either.
No, for sure. It was an optional extra at the time.
And probably about £150 at the time, I imagine.
Yeah, but the Amiga 1000s, I have to say, were the nicest models you can get, because when you take the top lid off, you'll know this, Jason, you take the top lid off and all the designers' names are etched into the plastic on the underside. So it's a bit of a, because it was the first model, it's people like them for that, basically.
Do you get the same sort of issue with your old stuff like the Amigas when you upgrade them, add obviously more RAM and stuff like they did with the PCs, where you had to have the turbo button? A lot of people thought the turbo button was there to make it go faster, but it was actually there to make it go slower so the games wouldn't actually run too fast. Do you get the similar sort of thing on the Amigas if you upgrade them too much?
Yes, for sure. I don't know how it is for you, Jason, with the Turbo Fire, if that throttles it back appropriately. Certainly with these.
In general, I've not been too bad on real hardware. There's certain games which just haven't been programmed with anything other. They've basically relied on the clock rate of the machine. And so they haven't done any extra programming. Once you've progressed past that level, most people have put something in that checks what it's running at and divides it accordingly so that the game then runs properly. So there are those few that escape. Funny enough, I do have a Raspberry Pi 400, which I did stick a great Amiga image that I picked up on there. And one of the games, North and South, which is a game I've always loved, it plays so fast that there's a part where you run across a train, and it takes all of about 2 seconds from beginning to end, and it's finished on the emulator. It's running far too fast for what it is. It just doesn't work. And that is where one of the problems comes in of the emulation. So unless you want to start moving into the FPGA type things and look at those instead, and then you can actually have a proper recreation of the Amiga hardware within that chip. So that's when it becomes different.
Certainly I have that sort of problem with what you're saying about clock cycles in the 1500, because that's got the accelerator on it. There's a little toggle switch, you can flick the accelerator off, but a game like Syndicate, you run it on 7 megahertz and it runs at a snail's pace. You run it at 28 megahertz and it's far too fast to be playable. So usually if I play Syndicate, I'll play it on my Amiga 1200, which is 14 megahertz. It's a nice level balance.
Yeah. I remember having that issue in the early days of Windows 3.1, things just going way too fast. Sometimes you could install stuff on the really old stuff, but when you actually got around to playing it, it was just like totally unplayable, because a lot of stuff, especially on the early Windows machine, it wasn't actually playing it in Windows. You had to load it up in DOS or something like that for it to actually work, and obviously it didn't have much in the way of controls of the speed and stuff. So yeah. Right. Do you have anything to show us what you've got on your screen, Jason? Because we're starting to push time.
Yes, we are. I'm aware. Obviously, I've got... I'm sure you've noticed this big screen here. This is running on an original Xbox. If you actually look around, this is, again, something that's great from the updates that have come out from people. There is actually now an HDMI cable from the video out. So that's straight into an HDMI on the TV, running also at 720p. So the Xbox, I've changed over and put another hard drive in it, made it a bigger hard drive, which there's a few tricks and things to be able to flash it and do, but that has now got virtually every single game from Xbox available on there. So you can do things like that if you want them and have them. So that's got tons of stuff, and that's why that's there. But I'm amazed at how good that machine is. And when you think it's sort of I think the 733 megahertz, the processor, or around 800. And you think back to a PC, it wouldn't have been able to play games anywhere near how this Xbox does it. So that's why I've put that on, just to be able to talk about that. And obviously here, I've got myself as close as I can to a 4x3 flat screen monitor, because I was limited in space on this wall. But I do back here have a proper monitor, as you'll see, for being able to go fully old school if I want to. But yeah, Amiga CD32, I've got the Xbox, I've got Commodore 64, my 1200 underneath, an Atari 800 XL, and an Electron that are all sat here, we're just ready to go. So yeah, very happy with all of those, and it's just something that once you start collecting it, it's nice now to be able to go through. And like I say, I've picked up the Dreamcast, which I've never played before, so that was just really great fun, just to be able to pick one of those up for, you know, less than £100. You can get a very good condition one, play that, and it's just great being able to get back on and learn, or not learn, but experience these games that everyone else, a lot of other people have had a chance to do, whereas I stuck to the computers and never really had that option when I was younger.
Is that a C2N that you've got between the two monitors, is it?
The down here?
Is that what you call a C2N, the cassette recorder?
Yes, sorry, here, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I haven't seen one of them in a long time.
Yeah, it's quite funny having, I've got the Atari 1050 disk drive and the 1010 tape drive. I have actually tested both of them as well, and they all do still work. So that's, again, just something great that the old stuff somehow keeps going.
That's pretty good.
Sorry, can I just ask Pete, what is that on your desk over your left shoulder?
It's a Picade. It's like a kit you buy, a flat pack with the screen, and you add a Raspberry Pi in it with an SD card, and you can run Retrocade on it. So you buy it as a kit. Oh, I've just rebooted it. And then you just add a Raspberry Pi in the back here. They're good if you've not got loads of time in your hands to build, it from scratch. They're pretty cool. Well, it's the first time I've got it out since we moved last year. But yeah, they're really cool.
I like that. I'm going to get one.
Yeah, I like that.
They do an 8-inch and a 10-inch screen version. I like the 8-inch because you can have the board around it. It looks a bit more authentic, I think.
Cool.
Looks interesting. No, there's a lot of retro stuff and a lot of stuff what's new, what's supposed to look retro and so forth, which brings back some of the old games and stuff. Right, before we finish the show, because we're nearly an hour and a half in, let's have a quick round. What was your favourite computer console ever? I'll start with Robert.
Come to me last. Favorite console ever.
Oh, that's a tough one.
I'll tell you what, it's probably not my favourite, but it intrigued me, was a Vectrix. There you go.
Okay.
You know what Vectrix was?
I know the Vectrix. They are fantastic machines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like
expect a base
poster on its side, and it had a screen, and it was black and white, and you put plastic filters, so it'd be yellow or green or blue, and they were all vector lines. And yeah, we used to hire it from the video shop for the weekend for perhaps £10.
Wow.
You get 5 games, and you bring it back on the Monday morning. So not the best, that was my favourite.
That's pretty good. Let's go on to Peter. What was your favourite from the past?
Oh, it's difficult. I have to say my Amiga 500. That was my first real home family computer, which I sort of adopted and stole from the rest of the family. But I had the Amiga 500 with the extra 512K expansion pack on it, the Philips CM 8833-2 monitor, I think it was. An extra external floppy drive, so if you had a 2-disc game, you could pop both those discs in there. You had these 2-disc games where the intro would be the first disc, the actual game would be on the second disc, and that's my absolute favourite computer ever. I think my Amiga 500.
Yeah, I must agree. That's also my favourite one as well. Even though BBC was the first one, but the Amiga was mine. Especially when these you got the Bullfrog games. Was Bullfrog? Yeah. So it was like your Populous and stuff like that, Dungeon Keeper and stuff like that. I really got into those sort of games, and then obviously Syndicate and a few other things down the route. I'm guessing Ben's is going to be an Amiga, but go on then, Ben. Tell us. Am I right?
Oh, it was a Spectrum.
Oh, okay. I was totally wrong.
No, it's definitely the Amiga 1200. Definitely Amiga 1200. It's what got me into the retro scene. What is now the retro scene, but it's still quite modern.
Well, that's it. What about yourself, Jason?
I'd have to say the Amiga 1200. I had the 500, but the 1200 was just more expandable. It was more of everything, and it felt like it was never ending, that computer. So that was my favourite, and it lasted me for ages. And
yeah, never got around to using the 1200. Or 500 was the 500 with all the extra bits on it. I think we added hard drive memory and all that and so forth to it. But yeah, I always wanted a 1200 because when they brought the games out and stuff, they always came out on 1200 first, and then you got them on the 500 and it's like a cut down version of it, or the graphics weren't as good or something. But yeah, what about you, Ian? What was your favourite console, PC, or whatever of the past?
For computer, it's C64, hands down. It's the only one I had. I never was lucky enough to get the Amiga. And by the time I could afford to buy myself an Amiga, I was then into Sega Genesis, Super NES. So I'd say C64 computer, and I'd probably say the Dreamcast for console.
Right, okay. And before we finish it off, last one, favourite game. Go to you, Robert. Did you have a favourite game?
Oh,
First one comes to you.
the Raid over Moscow and Jet Set Willie.
Right,
Okay.
I remember that.
Go on, Peter.
Oh, there can't be one. There can't be one. Monkey Island, Speedball 2, Xenon Mega Blast, any sensible game, any Bitmap Brothers game, Magic Pockets, all those games, they're all fantastic.
You're bringing back some memories there. What about you, Ben?
I'll give you two, not just one, but two. Bubble Bobble and The Settlers.
Oh, Settlers. I forgot all about that one. Yeah, I did like Settlers.
Installed on this as well. I could have shown it you.
Oh dear. But yeah, Settlers. The first one, I always preferred the first one than all the sequels. I don't know why, but it just seemed better. What about you, Jason? What's your favourite?
Well, I'm actually going back. I think this is because it's some of the first games that I played, and they just had such an impact on me. Manic Miner or Jetpack, and I'm kind of between those two.
Oh, Jetpack. Yeah.
They're just both incredible games and just really blew me away for what they gave. And of course, everything's continued, and we have wonderful, wonderful stuff in the new consoles and updated computers and everything else. But yeah, I just love those games.
And what about you, Ian? What's your favourite of the past?
There's so many, but I'd say for sentiment, for friendship wise, and still to this day, is Bubble Bobble, Speedball 2. I played that to death, and I liked all the game series, like the winter games, summer games, and stuff. But yeah, Bubble Bobble.
Yep.
It's just on whatever you play it on, it's so good.
That's pretty good. Right, guys, we're going to have to call it a night. I think we've gone on a little bit too long, I think. But if anyone's interested in retro computers or anything like that, make sure you have a look at the Retro Computer Museum. I'm pretty sure it's a charity. So can you donate on the website? So if anyone wants to donate on the website.
Yes, we do have a donate button from there because, of course, we've been closed with COVID, so we've been relying completely on donations for things to keep us going. So we've got Just Giving basically attached onto the webpage. So if anyone is able to donate anything, that really would be fantastic and just keep us alive. And while I've got the opportunity, I'll mention we've been very, very lucky to have a number of retro style musicians, composers, however you'd like to say it, people who've programmed games. I think we've even got one guy who actually did some of the Tomb Raider music. So, and they've donated tracks to us, and we've put out a 51-track 3D set of music, which can be bought for £25 from blankcanvascharity.uk. So that all the proceeds go to the computer museum, the Retro Computer Museum. So if you want to have a look at that, that would be brilliant, and please do it. And all the music, I bought it, and it sounds fantastic. So
there we go. So we've got the address for that on the screen at the moment. So that's blankcanvascharity.uk. Also, you've got the retrocomputermuseum.co.uk, and then you've got Pixel Fix as well. So you'll get to see Jason, or at least hear him, should I say. Is it every week?
yes, it is.
Every week? Any specific day you release them, or is it?
As I say, usually a Monday, and we're up to 42 episodes, I believe, now. So that's good.
Pretty good going then. You're outnumbering us at the moment, but we'll catch up. But there we go. So, right, I think that's going to be it for tonight then, guys. So I'd like to thank everyone, obviously, who's been a guest host on tonight. So thank you, Ben, Ian, Peter, Robert, Sharon, who's unfortunately left us. I don't mean that in a bad way, but she had a phone call. And Jason as well. Let's put... that's it. Yeah, so that's all for the news for today. So I would like to make sure that you remember to, well, if you're not in Tech for Techs, you go to the Tech for Techs website, which is tech4techs.co.uk/join, and you can join over 1,100 members just like you that can give you free business or tech advice. And did I say it's totally free to join with no membership fees or cost to you? You'll even get a chance to talk to Ben about retro stuff if you really want to. So again, that's for anyone who's an independent trader, store owner, MSP, tech, vendor, or distributor. And again, that is tech4techs.co.uk/join. So when you do go on to join, make sure you put your web address and fill the questions in. If you do not, we won't let you in. It's as simple as that. We'll let less people in than actually get in because obviously they don't fill the questions in. So again, thanks for watching and thanks for supporting local independent businesses. Good night, everyone.